Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leha, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
Hi, I'm Don McLaughlin. I'm a candidate for House District 80, which consists of Webb County, Uvalde County, Dimmitt County, Zavala County, Frio County, and Atascosa County. I'm also a small businessman, and I know what it takes to run a small business. And for too long, we've had too much government regulation coming into our small business and making it tougher and tougher for us to survive and get by. And that's one of the things I hope to change. Small business is the backbone of the state of Texas, and we need to make sure it thrives and that they have the support they need in government and less government regulation.
We're back at you in Gloves Off, and today I have a great guest, Sheena Rodriguez from Alliance for a Safe Texas, and we're touching base on the issues of human trafficking, unaccompanied minors, how they've been lost, everything that goes on, how it's a well-organized, how can I say, plan of events, that is the way it's going, the way that human trafficking is done here. And we're going to talk about that. Good morning. How are we doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. You know, it's almost election next week, a week away, and let's hope for the better. But let's
I'm ready
touch
for
base.
it to be over. I'm ready for it to be over.
You know, if everything's on the up and up, Trump will win. If not, well, you know, that's what would happen. But I want to ask you the following. I know that you've been covering a lot of ground, especially with the unaccompanied minors, human trafficking that's going on in South Texas. It's kind of getting, people say there's not a problem, but there is a problem. And can you explain all that?
Yeah, so I have some of the updated stats here, because whenever CBP, Border Patrol, updates its numbers, the HHS, Health and Human Services, kind of lags behind. And so they finally, about a week and a half ago, they finally updated their stats. HHS did, because of course those are the ones that take custody of the temporary custody of the unaccompanied minors that come over. And so they finally had updated it. So I have some of the updated stats, and it's just really staggering numbers. You know, a lot of the times when you're in this realm and it's the numbers come across and you just go. But every now and then I take a moment to pause and really think about what these numbers really mean, right? Because I've seen it, I've documented it, I've testified to Congress about it, and the travesties that are continuing to unfold, particularly with the children. And so when I give some of these updated stats to your viewers, I want you guys to please just stop and remember, this is not just random numbers. Each and every single one of these is an individual, a person, a human being, a child. And so it's very concerning for many reasons. But so the numbers that I'm going to be giving are from HHS directly. But these are the numbers of the kids that have actually been released to sponsors. So this isn't the number of encounters. That's far higher. And I know we're seeing even more groups of unaccompanied minors coming over in the Del Rio sector in particular, and we'll get into that hopefully a little bit later. But these are the kids that come over, and then our tax dollars then release them to very poorly vetted sponsors. So overall, HHS is reporting that from fiscal year 2021 to their current stats, which is usually about a month or two behind. Right now it's 442,582 that have been released to sponsors, poorly vetted sponsors across the United States. In Texas, that number, congratulations, we reached the 63,000 mark. So the total number, according to HHS, from fiscal year 2021 to current, that total number is 63,097 children have been released to very poorly vetted sponsors residing across the state of Texas. And to even back that up since 2019, because this specific category of data, they go back to 2019. That's now in less than a decade, over 94,682 have been released to sponsors residing across the state of Texas, far more than any other state. You're talking almost 100,000 kids in just a handful of years. It's very disturbing, and it's very concerning for so many reasons. And so, yeah, and just under this administration alone, congratulations, guys. We have surpassed the 63,000, and that's just the unaccompanied minors. That's not including the children that have come over in family units and everything else. And so when we see the number of trafficking cases across the United States, especially in labor trafficking, continue to skyrocket, it's very concerning, and people should be alarmed.
Well, those numbers are a lot. And when you say unvetted, what are you meaning by unvetted? They do not have criminal backgrounds. They're just releasing them to whoever. What's going on?
So a good portion, and actually let's dive into that data a little bit more, right? A good percentage of these children are released to sponsors that are themselves not here legally. So it's very difficult to really truly vet. You know, I'm a former teacher, right? So I had to be background checked, I had to be fingerprinted, all of those things. If those who might be familiar who have foster children, I kind of categorize and I try to highlight the difference. Anyone that's trying to adopt or trying to go to foster a child, they're thoroughly vetted. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of vetting. They visit your home, they do all of these things. They're gonna know what your blood type is, pretty much, right? As they should. But when it comes to being a sponsor of an unaccompanied minor, a lot of these kids, like I testified to, they're being told by total and complete strangers who'd ask for, a lot of them, when they arrive here to the United States. Under this administration, they've relaxed the vetting policies even more, and it's just been so overwhelming that a lot of the organizations that partner with HHS to do some of the vetting, they're not trained in document fraud and things of that nature. So it's a lot of fraudulent documents that are being, that make it very difficult for people to truly do the vetting, especially if there's no database to compare it to. And when under this administration in particular, when they've relaxed those vetting even more, if they've committed certain crimes and things of that nature, if they themselves are ordered to be deported, they can still qualify to become a sponsor of this child. And in Texas, and we've actually seen through congressional investigations, like Senator Chuck Grassley and Senator John Cornyn, who I just had the pleasure of meeting just a few days ago in Georgetown. They've been at the forefront trying to highlight and address some of these issues regarding the unaccompanied minors, and I shook his hand and said thank you. They're aware of a lot of these problems, and yet we keep on doing it, even releasing them to known gang members, MS-13 gang members. Our tax dollars are releasing these children. A lot of the whistleblowers have come forth in Florida and during their investigations that we also tried to advocate for here in the state of Texas. In their investigations in the state of Florida, they found children going to addresses that were of strip clubs, that were empty lots. It's very concerning. And here in Texas, when I just testified a few weeks ago to the Senate Border Security Committee hearing in Austin, the state legislators, I had cited a whistleblower during a recent congressional roundtable hearing that John Cornyn was a part of, where one of the whistleblowers mentioned that over 500 kids were sent to an apartment complex, a single apartment complex in Houston, Texas, and nobody bats an eye. If we want to dive a little bit even more into the data and some of the concerns, out of this 60, over 63,000, I have been breaking down the data of the number of unaccompanied minors that have been released to various zip codes, to sponsors living in various zip codes. I've been going county by county. It's very long, tedious process. I've done Tarrant County, I've done Houston, Harris County. I'm working right now, and I just finished Bear. I will be releasing all of that in some of the surrounding counties. With that in mind, when I had broken down the data that was actually obtained by the New York Times, because the New York Times has done very thorough investigations, they found trafficking cases and exploitation of these unaccompanied minors coming over under this administration in every single one of the 50 states, and they released that data that they obtained through a FOIA request by HHS. So that's how I've been breaking it down by zip code and really showing people how it's impacting their own backyards. Well, with that data, I was able to disseminate during this last testimony to the Texas legislators, the Senate Border Security Committee hearing. I even broke it down, and it talks about, I broke it down that 27,000 of these kids that I've been able to, and that data stops in May of 2023. So that's not even a full snapshot under this administration. That's just the more strategic data that I have available. 27,000 of the kids that were released under this administration to sponsors in Texas were released to sponsors who were not their parents. 27,000. Of that, even 6,400 of those kids were released to individuals that were far distant relatives or completely unrelated sponsors. I'm talking just here in Texas. So when we see, increasing claims by other organizations, trafficking organizations like Shepherd's Watch, who I just met with about a week ago, over there in New Braunfels, and we were going over some of their findings. They're a trafficking organization that works with law enforcement to help and find some of these victims. They claim over a 90% increase of migrant women and young girls that are being found on these social media websites advocating for basically forced prostitution. And so when we even see like the trafficking rings and the busts that have been done in Houston, in Harris County recently, they've done a phenomenal job where simultaneously they raided 9 different locations, massage parlors being shut down, and clubs where forced trafficking rings. A lot of those individuals, of course, were migrants themselves. So it's very concerning. And when you have these kids that are known worldwide to be even especially prone to exploitation and abuse and trafficking situation, we're opening the floodgates, and Texas is at the forefront. So it's going to be a continuing problem for quite some time.
It's a problem that we have, and it's a problem that a lot of politicians seem to ignore. They claim that nothing is going on, nothing is happening. So it's a problem that we live with. A lot of people say, let's do the border wall, that'll end the solutions. I think it's more than that. How about all the kids that are already here? Where are they? What are we going to do about that? Nobody's coming out with those solutions. Okay, fine. Let's build a wall. Let's build a fence. Do whatever you want. But how about the ones that are here already lost? What are we going to do about that? That's what I'm concerned about. Laredo, it seems that our leaders seem that this situation is not occurring. It's not like that. It's not happening. I'll show a video right now where apparently it's a part that occurred this past week, of people in the middle of the day running across. And you've seen the video, and I'll play it right now. And it's something that it's kind of dangerous, because now there's no children in that group. It's all adult men coming across, and it's not 5. It feels more like 20. So it's a problem. It's problematic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like men in the video going across a play yard public play yard with young children. And when we see, and yeah, definitely show the video. And when we see the rising concerns of gang members that we know are coming over, especially with TDA, that are prone to target migrant communities and Hispanic communities like ours, and especially like down there in Laredo, it's concerning. So yeah, definitely show the video, because that was interesting to say the least. And I think as we get closer to election day, and depending on especially how the elections, because no matter who wins, right, they're not going to, on election day, they're not going to take office until January, right? So depending how this election goes, we know that there's more caravans on the way. We know that there's been increasing numbers of special interest aliens coming over with large groups again. In the Del Rio sector of unaccompanied minors. Absolutely horrific. And it's very interesting. I'm sure we'll get to that here in a second. But yeah, if you want to show the video, that'd be great. People need to see it.
And hold on just 1 second. Let me see where. Let me see. There you go. And there it is. But what I'll do is we played that. But you know what gets me is a lot of people always talk about how the cartels are involved and how there's different wristbands and how this wristband is for this sector and this is how much you paid, and a lot of people think it's a conspiracy, but you've seen it and you've shown it. So let's talk about that right now.
Yeah, so I know one of the things I was just talking about, when I mentioned a few times now, with the growing number of special interest aliens, or also you could say SIAs, coming over and crossing over in the Del Rio sector, which is the Eagle Pass area, along with a large number of unaccompanied minors again. You know, they're coming over in the Del Rio sector right now. I know Chris Oliveras with the Texas DPS. What was very interesting and caught my attention almost immediately, I spent a lot of time down in the RGV in the Roma and La Jolla area, documenting and seeing where the bracelets that you were just talking about are coming. You know, I have so many of these that have come through. They've got some numbers on it. This one actually was put on a very special young girl. She was 13 from Belize. I keep this one often when I testify, when I've testified to Congress, and sometimes when I testify in Austin, I'll wear her band because that was one of the most, this is why I do what I do, because of my experiences in documenting it with young girls like her. It's anyways, they sorry, I'm getting emotional. It just bothers me. What we're seeing now, Chris Oliveras, when he posted the video a few days ago talking about the large number of kids and SIAs coming through, he pointed that these bracelets, similar looking bracelets, were now showing up in the Del Rio sector in near Eagle Pass. I also spent a lot of time over there in Eagle Pass, and I had never seen these. And I always told myself, I wonder if these bracelets are going to start showing up in other areas across Texas. It's interesting that now, years later, here we are on the brink of another election, and now, for whatever reason, these bracelets, according to Chris, you know, with Texas DPS, these are now showing up in Eagle Pass. It's concerning for several reasons. You know, the RGV area, the cartel that operate across from the valley over there, are notoriously more ruthless and dangerous, which is why it was always so concerning that there was such a large number of unaccompanied minors, especially young ones, that were coming over in the RGV area. So to see this transition of these bracelets now showing up in the Del Rio sector is alarming. I'm wondering if it is an indication. You know, we know that the cartel activity shifts, right? And they're constantly battling each other for territory. And I'm wondering if that is an indication that once again, that some of these more ruthless cartels are showing up further west, which means, of course, that they're going right by Laredo sector, right? So because in order to get to, if you look at the map, go from the RGV, Laredo's right smack in between the two sectors, the Del Rio sector and the RGV sector. So it's very interesting and very alarming and concerning. And I think that depending especially how the election goes on the 5th and what those results are, if President Trump is victorious, it would be very interesting, because I think you're going to see a huge flood. We know that the caravans are on the way again. We're seeing a huge uptick in the crossings and the encounters across the board, especially in the Del Rio sector. I know that just yesterday, or maybe it was earlier today, one of the RGV sector CBP chief had just posted a photo of 4 children, it looks like young children according to the photo, that was left by their cartel smuggler, their coyote, in the middle of the river, just left them there. Thank God, by the grace of God, those agents were able to find and locate those children and take them to safety. This is only going to get worse, I think, before it gets far better. And when it comes back to the children, the situation with the unaccompanied minors has always been an issue. And I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But I really hope that there's a huge focus, if the tides do shift and the White House does change, that there's a huge focus to start addressing some of the long-standing issues with the unaccompanied minors, and the children, and those magnets. We always talk about the magnets. So long as our federal government continues to incentivize the use of children to be used as pawns, they will keep on coming. And so we need to address that. And I know it's an uncomfortable situation. And I know when it comes to border security, like you said, everybody talks about the wall. They talk about, okay, great, but there's a lot more. And these kids is one of those, what I call the in-between issue. It's not sexy to talk about. You can't take a photo op with it. And yet it impacts Texas the most. We need real solutions.
And for God, they're out there, they're lost. I mean, that's something that we have to start finding out what is going on, what has happened, how can we stop that, how can we take care of them. They're now here, so we have to take care of them, plain and simple. So, and people might disagree, but we can't deport them. They're going to go back to what, where, you know what I'm saying? If the parents, a lot of them, their parents sold them, their families sold them to this, and so we can't send them back. So we have to take care of them. And, we have to come up with ideas, solutions, how we can do that and how we can stop that in there. And there's a lot of great ideas from a lot of different senators that are coming up there that I hope people can get on behind, and let's just stop it, because that's the only thing that's going to happen.
So you mentioned something very interesting. I want to touch on that. When you just said, if their parents have sold them and everything, we know that happens, right? That's a very real thing. If you guys remember, under the Trump administration, they kept on talking about Trump separating families and so on and so forth, and kids being lost in the system. They're really talking about a few hundred kids that actually carried over into the Biden administration, that were never sent back to their families or never reunited with their families. Why? Because exactly what you said, they didn't want them, or they were not able to identify them. And the media was completely silent because they realized, I'm sure, that had they told the truth about what was happening with these children, that it doesn't fit their narrative, right? So you're right. When people talk about, deportations and everything else, the criminals and these really bad, these gang members, these terrorists, absolutely 100%. They all need to be found. They all need to be deported, and get off our streets and out of our communities. 100%. That's common sense, right? They should have never been. And it's going to take years. I mean, years and years. This is far more than just one presidential term that's going to fix everything that has been broken under this administration. But to your point, children are not going to be deported. It's not. So when people think, oh, yes, President Trump might get into office, and if he does, it's going to be mass deportations. When it comes to the children, it's not going to happen. They're not going to go anywhere. And particularly not any numbers. And part of the reason is exactly like you just said, right? Where are they going to go? So I think, when it comes to, hopefully if the tides do shift, we need to focus on the policies. Yes, on the congressional level and the federal level, we need to stop this incentivizing it, change the interpretation in the way that reverse some of these really relaxed and dangerous policies under this administration, and address some of the issues with like the Flora settlement and things of that nature. But also, we need to really start focusing, and that this is what I've done, start focusing on the state and local levels. When it comes to these children, a lot of these children, a percentage of them, let me reverse, not a lot, but a percentage of these children will also end up in our foster care system. That's a state level issue at that point. I know that a lot of them end up going to, in the federal system as well, but a lot of them will also end up in the state foster care system as well. How are we going to address that? When when children now have been taken, if they have been released to sponsors, I think it was like over 2,000. I know the Center Square just did an update on some of the data of the child eligibility level letters. So when they when a trafficking is found of an unaccompanied minor or a child, if they are rescued, they then can file for like child eligibility to see if they are eligible for like trafficking assistance and helping to rehabilitate them. That number has skyrocketed under this administration. And it used to be that adults actually outweighed the number of children. Now under this administration, it really reversed and skyrocketed for children. So to that point, when they are rescued, what's going to happen to them? Because a lot of the times they end up right back into the hands of HHS and then just released to another poorly vetted sponsor. So we need to, on the state level, really push even for some regulations to be able to almost categorize these children under the same category as like foster care children. That if you're wanting to, I would love to see with that collaboration between federal and state policy, where with the unaccompanied minors, if you want to become a sponsor of a child, now you have to be vetted and background checked and fingerprinted and your homes checked and everything else, just like you would for if you applied to be a foster care parent for an American child. Why is it any different? It shouldn't be, right? So that's some of the things that I wish that I would personally like to see.
I think that should be common sense. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So that's what we have to fight for. I think that's the start of this whole battle right there. I think right there, that's the start for this whole battle. Now, I know you're busy and we're running out of time, but this is an issue that I want to thank you for what you're doing. I want to thank you and all the other agencies that are out there fighting for these children. I want to thank you all for doing what you do and continue standing up. There's a lot of people that are behind you. And God bless you all for that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I can't say that we're being all that successful just yet, but that doesn't mean we're going to give up trying. So we know that there's problems. It's very real. It's impacting real people. And we need to do better. We need to do better as a society. So that we can't turn a blind eye. So, but thank you as always for having me on. It's always great.
Well, thank you for calling and letting me know what's going on. We have to jump on it. We have to do that out there because it is a problem that we are facing, that we're going to continue facing. We better find out some good solutions instead of pointing fingers. And thank you again. Folks, we've run out of time. We're going to leave you with this. You all stay safe, be safe, and God bless you. Next time.